What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here, welcoming you to the very last part of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Imrik Immortal Empires campaign. So I wasn't originally planning to do another episode of this campaign, or at the very least another sort of final episode. Mostly because I think this campaign is well and thoroughly complete. We've pretty much defeated all of our enemies. The sort of end game of this campaign was the threats from Chaos, both in the Empire and in the Northern Chaos Wastes especially, as we were having a little bit of a tough time defending this place. But those threats have been broken. Sigvald was the leader of them, and his armies have been destroyed and his territories down to 2. The Empire, while remaining by and large in Chaos hands, this is mostly just cleanup remaining, as we've defeated all but 2 of their armies, and Epidemius was an army that had revived after being defeated by Alistar, I think, twice, and I doubt that they're going to be able to defeat him a second time. Festus's only remaining armies on the map are these 2, and they are in range of Erathond, and I think Red Duke's army is already, it's already destroyed, so there's nothing really here, except just to move between all of these territories and auto-resolve all the garbage little Chaos garrisons, because, well, Chaos garrisons are garbage. We defeated Grimgor, who has 1 settlement. We've defeated Kolek, who has 1 settlement. The forces of Chaos up here are still existing, but it's not a good life, especially considering that Cathay is now pretty much ours, and of course all of this is our allies. Anything that we don't own, allies, Southern Chaos Wastes allies. There's a little bit of enemies remaining in Lustria, but our allies will soon overrun them as well. Of course, we own all of Nagorond, well, basically everything north of the Heshwatla Lizardmen, and have even started to move into the Northern Chaos Wastes. What I'm saying is, there isn't really much to do. All of the things that we usually use as final battles, the Black Pyramid of Nagash, is not available. Nagashazar has already fallen to us, of course, and we've got the long victory a long time ago. Teclis has defeated the 2 stacks belonging to Gorth the Cruel, and only the remnants of the garrison remain. And Jarnagrind, there's basically nothing left, which is why I was thinking this campaign was just done. But basically, some of you enjoy, I suppose, having a episode that's sort of labeled as the final episode, the finale, what have you. So why not? We'll do that here. I can certainly oblige in that regard. What I can't, however, do is promise big battles for every lord, because there aren't really many remaining. There's really nothing near to Imrik, and once again, he's been using basically a third of a stack, because we're not counting the Ithilmar chariots, for the entire campaign, and nothing has been able to stand against him. We don't need the additional dragon princes or the additional star dragons or whatever to make him stronger, and certainly don't need them to defeat anything that the game can throw at us. And I mean, once again, look at Imrik's stats. Every single stat is maxed out. It's pretty crazy. Behold his glory, but don't look upon him directly, you mongrels. Anyway, Anyway, yeah, Skavenblight is undefended, which was another threat that was remaining, but apparently not so much. There's little enough to be had here. So, the way that this final episode is going to go is thus. There are a bunch of armies running around, and I will basically do a bunch of time skips where we try to find some good battles. I'll promise, let's say, at least 3 fights in this particular end episode. I'm hoping to get at least 1 with Erathond, since he is the legendary lord that is joining our community canon after this campaign, and fortunately with these 2 armies nearby, we can at least guarantee 1, even if it's not going to be a crazy difficult one or anything like that. And then the rest will be up to whatever we can find, whatever we can reach in terms of this episode. So that's the plan. Strap yourselves in for one more round of a glorious Caledorian supremacy. So we'll start with the Eagle Prince himself, who has done so much throughout this campaign, and we'll have him strike at Akarak Putris and wipe out for good the remaining armies of the Fecundites. And of course, they do have a lot of territory remaining, but while all of that territory is effectively undefended now. So, close victory, low casualties, but I do expect that a lot of the fights in this end episode will be of that nature. I'll try to find some good ones, but we'll just stick with the best that we can find. So, Akarak, goodbye. Alrighty, Assyrian wills it indeed, though he sends not phoenixes but eagles to do the deed. Good, maybe that's the wrong choice. But who knows? Slashy giggle, we are elves after all. Anyway, here we go. We're going to start the battle off with a little bit of an aerial ballet, even as the Eagle Claw bolt throwers come down upon the enemy infantry below. The Harpies crash to the ground as well. The Eagles quickly tear through the ranks of Harpies, or Furies rather, as well as those plague drones, and it looks like aerial superiority is pretty much ours, pretty much instantly. And while that was happening, Arathon has already, I believe, killed off the enemy lord somewhere here. I believe that's his corpse on the ground here, but it's hardly surprising that went rather quickly, and we'll now instead head over to, I mean, look at this frickin' stats. He's not even on a dragon. He's on a griffin. Pretty darn nasty. But anyway, he's going to go after those exalted heroes while we continue the bombardment with our Eagle Claw bolt throwers, and our Eagle Blob continues obliterating, well, pretty much anything that they come into contact with. Cheap tier 2 units perhaps, but man do they do a lot of damage. And once again, we don't use the Eagle Claw bolters in too many of the armies, so it is nice to see them in this one. They are quite entertaining to watch, even if gunpowder artillery is, generally speaking, more fun. But we've gotten these things up to 672 missile strength. They do quite a lot of damage. And of course, damage isn't the only thing that they do well. They also keep a lot of enemies separated, as it is one of those artillery pieces that the AI loves to attempt to dodge. So the entire enemy army is completely divided, and well, it really doesn't know how to act. Anyway, it looks like Arathon has already defeated one of the enemy exalted heroes, and will head down to defeat the second, who will probably quickly fall down to about half of his HP. Okay, a quarter of his HP, and okay, he's dead. Yep. How many a lord and how many a hero have met their end amidst the claws and talons and beaks of the Eagle Blob. And there we go. What have they cited now? It's a unit of aspiring champions. That unit was full health as we were ignoring it, as our artillery would have been wasted on it. But I don't imagine that they'll be too healthy for too much longer. Down to half HP, on fire, wavering, damage sustained, and broken. Lovely. And the enemy reinforcements are moving in. Still haven't had any chance for our units of Silver and Guard to play, but it looks like there will be at least a few possibilities, as some Marauders and Forsaken, etc. I'm going to head on in. While Arathon ignores them all, he's got 5 kills. I believe that's 3 lords and heroes and 2 aspiring champions. Then we'll head towards killing off the enemy lord as well. Anyway, time for those staunch elven spears to get to work as the Marauders attempt to crash into the line. Well, we've seen how effective that is before. Without Chosen with great weapons or anything along those lines, I don't think these guys are going to get through. Arathon has already brought down the enemy lord to half of his HP over in the background, and our artillery will continue screaming overhead. While we drop a few spells, admittedly haven't been doing too much of that in this particular battle, but it's also not really been needed, admittedly. Marauders of Nurgle have joined the regular Marauders, but the Flock of Doom continues to menace them from above, and if any spell deserves to be used in this particular battle, it's probably the Flock. Arathon has killed off the enemy lord and is heading into combat now, as Griffin spinning and winning by the looks of it, as the Marauders are horrified to find it in their among their ranks. And there we go. With that, the rest of the Marauders will shatter. We didn't send all the rest of the Eagles to bolster our lines because they weren't needed, and we had to have the Silver and Guard do at least a little bit of work. Besides, the Eagles were busy trying to deal with the enemy Chaos Spawn, which they will surely bring down one by one. I think we did manage to lose one Eagle, unless I'm mistaken. But considering the amount of damage dealt to the rest of the enemy army, that was pretty darn good. Or actually, did we lose an eagle? Maybe not. These guys are down to half of their HP, and everybody seems to be at full. Well, I guess we'll find out. Either way, with that, the battle is ours. The enemy army is pretty much destroyed, and Arathon ends the campaign on yet another win. And there we are, one loss, and who knows if it was a fluke or not. Interesting that the Forsaken have 2 kills here somehow, despite the one loss. But anyway, Talon Princess Silverguard, oh well done. And generally speaking, well done, Arathon. This is how our Eagle Prince conquered what, like half of the New World by himself. So yeah, entirely tier 2 army. And entirely too effective. Alright, now we are going to, I guess it really doesn't matter what we pick here. I guess ransom captives, more influence, not that we really need it. At this point, the influence, well, we could just force our enemies to declare war upon each other, which I did take a look at, and we are able to do. It's just that the interface is a little bit weird, but it's alright. Not that we need to do that either, because, well, those enemies aren't really any kind of threat to us at this point in time either. Anyway, while doing the admin between the episodes, I did take a look at what other things we could do in this particular turn, and I believe that was the only battle to be had, and the rest are just going to be moves. So I'm going to do a time skip until we find the next decent fight worthy, hopefully, of the final episode. So here comes the first time skip. Alright, here we are. Looks like Alistar will be one of the lucky lords to get a final battle, as Epidemius, though unfortunately impregnated, has moved to, well, at least be somewhat close, at least close enough to offer Alistar one more fight. Now, we have defeated Epidemius before with this particular lord, unless I'm mistaken, or at the very least we've defeated a Nurgle army. I don't remember if it was Epidemius's own or not, and I suppose at the end of the day, doesn't matter because we're about to defeat him anyway. You get immunity to contact effects from Epidemius, don't you? Unless I'm mistaken. Well, that's something nice for Alistar to not have anymore because the campaign will be over. But anyway, Needling will be the target. Let's see those White Lions, War Lions, and Lion Chariots in action. Pyrrhic victory, you say? And sure, the Plague Bearers and Exalted Plague Bearers buffed up by Epidemius are sure to be at least something of a threat, but certainly not as much as the game thinks. Go. Does Alistar not make speeches? Maybe he doesn't. He has been a little buggy, unfortunately. He can't use his White Lion Chariot, and maybe he doesn't make a speech, even a generic Lord speech. I don't know. But I suppose he can let his lions, his War Lions, his White Lions, his Chariots, etc. all do the talking. Anyway, it looks like the enemy is going to start the battle up by summoning a unit of Plague Bearers on top of our War Lions and Chariots, about half of our War Lions and Chariots, to be specific. This, I imagine, is not going to go well, as the sheer damage coming in from all of these guys will rip the rather tanky Plague Bearers apart in rather short order, and then allow the rest of our lines to join the fray against the enemy. Frankly, this is probably a waste from the enemy, because it'll take a little bit of time for our White Lions to get to the, as in our White Lion infantry, to get to the enemy army, and obviously our Chariots and our War Lions can catch up much, much quicker. Anyway, it looks like this unit is pretty much destroyed, and we're about halfway to the enemy army with the rest of our units. I'm just going to take a little bit of time to get there while we watch these guys get torn apart. And ooh, the Rahagris Pride are still here as well. They are on this side, which probably helped dealing with those guys a little bit faster. Anyway, here comes Alistar. He's going to go directly for the enemy Rotflies. He may not have the same kind of aerial superiority capability as, for example, Arathon or, well, really any of our other armies. I was about to say Imrik, but pretty much any of our other armies will have more flyers than we do here. And frankly, he's not even supposed to be on the dragon, but gotta do something, gotta give him a mount. We tried him on foot once and it was kind of impossible to catch him, as in where the heck he was fighting in the middle of the blob of White Lions. Anyway, speaking of, the White Lions will be facing off against some Plague Toads, which have gotten a little bit better in vanilla and are significantly more useful in SFO than they used to be, as they used to be absolutely trash. And now they're a little bit more effective and can rack up a fairly decent amount of damage over time. The rest of the enemy army moves in. Fury's gonna drop down down from above, and the gates of Nurgle open. A greater gate and a lesser gate, I believe, so plague bearers and a great unclean one alike enter the middle of our formation, which ain't so great, but well, a little bit more fun for the White Lions. I do like the sort of clean look that we've got on in our army. Probably not going to last as they're all fighting Nurgle, but it does make them very easy to pick out against the enemy. Alright, and here comes Alistair. I do believe he has found Epidemius, who is hanging around down here in the middle of our formation as well. And it'll be a fairly lengthy duel between the two, I imagine. In the meantime, we got our fast movers who have been menacing at least some portion of the enemy army, but we're going to try to loop them around and try to drag the rest of the enemies to where our white lines are fighting, so that the war lions and chariots can smash into the enemy's flanks and rear, as they're obviously not going to want to stay in protracted combat nearly as long. Alright, another Flock of Doom comes down. We do have a Beast Lore mage in this particular army as well, though the Pan's Impenetrable Pelt and the Evison's Wild Form giving us armor and just general tank ability is probably going to be worth more in this particular fight. The unit that is guarding the flank here has started to take pretty severe damage. This unit of White Lines down to about half of their HP and 3/4 of their unit count, as once again, or as always, the unit on the flank is usually in the most danger, and this one got hit by all those summons and all those bigger units at the same time. On the bright side, our war lions have crashed into the enemy plague bearers and torn them apart against the... I guess we could call the White Lions an anvil and the War Lions the hammer, but really it's hammer against hammer here, isn't it? Everything here is a high damage dealing type of unit. The chariots move on in, and the war lions will follow suit shortly, and it looks like the enemy army is having a pretty bad day. I do believe Epidemius has nearly been defeated with about 20% of his HP remaining, and a couple more hits from Alistair should bring him down. We do have a couple more chariots and a couple more war lions trundling around. Well, the chariots are trundling around at any rate. And they're looking to join the fray by hitting more enemy units in the back as well. And Epidemius doesn't seem to even want to engage with Alistair, simply attempting to run away from him and the Star Dragon, but will ultimately fail to do so and will break. The Great Unclean One is next for Alistair, and there are still a fair few of those Plague Bearers and Exalted Plague Bearers in the fight, so battle's hardly over. Which is a great thing, because more war lions wanted to join the fray. They're going to line up in order to charge in. Just everybody getting into formation, and there we go. Probably could have put a little bit more distance, although if they had charged at a higher speed, they might have gotten into the enemy formation, and that might have not been as good for us, as they're obviously going to be a little bit more fragile. Alright, and it looks like the enemy numbers are dwindling. They certainly don't outnumber us anymore. Our chariots also continue to annoy some isolated units, and that unit just disappeared. I guess it was a summoned unit. Well, it's a gone unit now. And the chariots can simply turn and move into the next pile of plague bearers. And there we go. Not a lot of them go flying, but that's alright. The great thing about the line chariots is that they have huge melee attack and bleed application as well. So regardless of their ability to sort of cause a lot of formation disruption and act as chariots normally need to act, they can still rely on their bleed in order to cause damage. In the same way that Slaneshi chariots, even when they fail in a charge, will still be able to do a ton of damage with, well, also bleed and Serrated Blade Storm as well. And besides, this particular battlefield wasn't particularly conducive to a lot of maneuvering, a lot of trees, a lot of impassable terrain, and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, with that, the enemy army is broken, and the last of the plague bearers begin to melt away, and giving the White Lions one last victory for this campaign. And there we are. Oh, lovely. And these guys were just chatting about how the battle went. Alrighty, there we are. Bit of a brawl-tastic battle, but, well, the terrain didn't lend itself too well to high amounts of maneuvers. Still, some of the line chariots did manage to rack up plenty of damage and kills. 17k on one, 27k on another, 18k on another one, and you underperformed. Rude. They did a little bit more damage than the lions, but admittedly the war lines were also being used to chase enemies down, which the chariots were not, as they were dishing out damage. The chariots seem to have kept pace with a decent number of the regular white lines, though it looks like the Pure Main Company did the most damage at 29k, and at 37k, one of the unnamed units did even more. Very nice. And of course, Alistar, 38k without even using a single dragon breath, as it would have been unnecessary. I'm still a little bit disappointed that for whatever reason his own warline chariot is bugged, but well, if it's bugged there isn't anything we could do about it, so. And dragon he got. Occupy. And Epidemius is destroyed, and there we go. Enumerators and gives us immunity to contact effects, which is admittedly pretty nice for a lord. Riding a dragon as well. Big old target that could otherwise be debuffed by those contact effects. Anyway, I believe we're good to end the turn unless I'm mistaken, and skip it again until we find another battle, so see you at the next one. Alright, here we go, round 3. Looks like Teclis is the lucky one to get a final battle as well, and while Jarna Grund may not have given him a sufficient challenge, Grimgor is bringing 8 units of Black Orcs to duel 7 units of Swords Masters of Hoeth. Plus, these are Grimgor's Black Orcs, more powerful, and all of them, or at least 6 of them, are at max rank, whereas ours are not. It seems like Grimgor can actually build them up at max rank pretty much from the start, which is pretty interesting. On the bright side, Teclis' army is also now complete, with the exception of, I think he's missing one lore master unless I'm mistaken, but hardly matters. Most of his swords masters, he's got those 2 arcane phoenixes in tow as well now, and man, our phoenixes have 30% ward save, 20% physical save, and then all that healing from Teclis as well. Pretty darn solid, I should say. Anyway, let's see what Teclis versus Grimgor looks like. Final fight for Teclis, go.
For Elf One!
Alrighty, here we go. I'm glad that we managed to get this battle going. I definitely wanted to give Teclis at least one last fight, and not a fight necessarily where he, well, wins the entire battle by obliterating the entire enemy army with spells, because this is a relatively newly formed army, and I want to see all those Swords Masters in action. They are pretty cool units after all. And I gotta see those great swords swing. Melee attack 70, melee defense 62, 100 armor, pretty darn solid. We'll see how they fare against the piles of enemy Black Orcs. And I'm also loving the fact that we got the 3 lore masters to lead them as well. Should be pretty fun. Alrighty, so the way that we're going to do this is this. Teclis and the Phoenixes will ignore most of the enemy army. Instead, they're going to go directly for all of the enemy range units. The Orc Air Boys, the Goblin, I think it's all Orc Air Boys here actually, no Gobos at all. But anyway, that will be work for the Phoenixes rather than having them obliterate the enemy melee lines. And we'll leave the Black Orcs alone to smash into the line of melee units of our own. I think that should be pretty entertaining. The enemy's going to start off with some Goblin Wolf Riders smashing into those great weapons. Okay, good luck with that, Goblin Wolf Riders. Brave, surely. Perhaps they were more afraid of the Black Orcs behind them than they were of the Elves in front of them, but I think that's going to prove to be a mistake. As they will probably get torn apart rather quickly, shedding about 50% of their HP already, though their reinforcements are moving in as well. Gonna fend a few of them off with our Lore Master, and it looks like the Lore Master took that charge and already has a ring of dead around him, getting a decent bit of splash damage against some of the enemy Gobos. Before the Swords Masters even need to enter the fray. There we go, very nice. And besides, we haven't had the chance to see the Lore Masters shine all that much either. They must have been shining by spamming Spirit Leech on enemies. Anyway, here come the orcs. The goblins have, well, probably not tired us out all that much, but with the giant having arrived, black orcs, boar boys, etc., the battle just got a little bit more interesting. And ooh, if it isn't enemy trolls as well. Together with boar boys, looks like this particular unit of swords masters are definitely going to have their work cut out for them. And there's that duel that we were wanting, a great weapon black orcs versus swords masters. Pretty even fight between the two, I would wager. And though, of course, we have something that the enemy doesn't have. Even if we don't use a billion damaging spells to obliterate the enemy, what we can do is use a billion healing spells to keep our units from going down. In the meantime, Teclis has been fighting Grimgor in the midst of all this, and though Grimgor's stats are pretty crazy, his melee defense is basically nothing at only 33, and while Teclis may not be the craziest fighter around, he is hit pretty decently hard at 730, and he can just heal through any damage Grimgor deals to him by the looks of it. And heal not only the damage done to Grimgor or by Grimgor, but also spam his support spells, getting Metal Shifting, a Life Bloom, Smoke and Mirrors, and Exorcism up pretty much constantly, which is a pretty darn nice combination. Grimgor down to about 25% of his HP, and though he continues leading his Black Orcs from the front line, I don't imagine he'll be in this portion of the battlefield too much longer. There he goes. He's gonna run, and just as he pops off Grimgor's Wa to buff up the damage of all those Black Orcs pretty darn significantly. Teclis will attempt to chase him down, heedless of the piles of Black Orcs and other orcs around Grimgor, but Grimgor, by the looks of it, cannot escape Teclis nor the Arcane Phoenix, and that will go down. The bounce power switches or shifts to about 80% in our favor, maybe 75%. The enemy giant heavily damaged as well, and our swords masters continue to hold the line. Look at those piles of orcs beneath their feet, and I'm so glad we allowed these guys the chance to shine here. The Phoenixes have at last taken care of all the rest of the enemy archers, and by the looks of it, it's pretty clear that the battle is ours. The giant is done and being chased down by the lore master that defeated it, and look at all those passives. And another Black Orc big boss defeated by another lore master here, having only lost a little bit of its HP, and most of the enemy line is on the verge of collapse. So, we could do one other thing. Since we've clearly proven the superiority of our swords masters, we could do a little bit of work from the Phoenixes by dropping 3 arcane vortexes in the midst of the enemy blob at the same time. Now there we go. That's going to be pretty ugly as all those units pretty much get obliterated, and that's a huge morale shock to the enemy army. The bounce power shifts rapidly to 90% in our favor, and that one sort of or triple vortex looks like it will cause the entire enemy army to shatter and the battle to be ours. Fantastic. Love seeing all those piles of orcs at the feet of these swords masters. Especially considering how hard of a hit the Swords Masters took when we faced off against that army with the 5 Dreadquakes several episodes ago. That was that was not so good for the poor Swords Masters. I felt bad, and hopefully this let them let off a little steam. Anyway, lots of enemies are going to escape, and now Teclis is free to drop as many spells as he wants that he's not been using throughout his fight. So lots and lots of Chain Lightning, Spirit Leeches, whatever else he has, and to make sure that the enemy is gone for good. Alright, there we go. I'd like to think that we gave Grimgor a sporting chance in that particular fight. We didn't use the Phoenixes or Teclis' insane machine gun spells to obliterate all the Black Orcs before they reached our line, and allowed the great swords of the Swords Masters to do it instead. And then, of course, once the enemy had broken, Teclis simply obliterated all the runners with his spell work and a little bit of extra help from the Phoenixes and all that. A lovely little final fight from his army. We bid farewell to Grimgor as well as that is his last settlement, and obviously that was Grimgor himself. Plus, I was pretty impressed with Teclis just obliterating Grimgor in melee. I was expecting Grimgor to be a little bit tougher in that regard, but at this point Teclis has a lot going for him, so hardly surprising. Anyway, let's see if we can't get another fight or two if we can, but I'm pretty happy with this, and if we can't, we can. Let's find out. Alright, I think the last fight for Imrik will actually be here at Fyrus. I've been looking around, but there really isn't anybody else to fight left that is a potential or even close to a potential threat to him. It's been a few turns since the last time skip, and as you can see, we've basically completely recovered the Northern Empire. The Fecundites are destroyed, Skavenblight, and, well, frick, the entirety of the clan Scryer is pretty much destroyed. Several of these places have also been razed, so they are not actually Skaven ruins, they are just plain ruins. Sigvald is destroyed, his faction is gone, the Grimgor is destroyed, and there's probably a bunch of other things that are gone. One territory remaining to Sylvania, which I think we gotta wait until next turn to do so, but again, it doesn't really matter over much as there is no threats remaining. There's nobody left to fight, so I don't think we're going to find a better fight for Imrik than here. It's not a crazy big one, but at least it's Pyrrhic victory, medium casualties, a couple of stacks, and because of the small nature of Imrik's army, every battle is still, well, you know, being horribly outnumbered, so that's always a fun part. In fact, I think of all the campaigns I've done, this is the campaign where I have most sort of kept smaller armies and doing things, or at least unusual or weaker armies and doing things. Imrik running around with a third of a stack for pretty much the entire campaign. Fëanor spent basically... Oh, look at that. Throw out the Uncleanness down here. Let's see you. Probably going for Mount Gumbad, eh? Oh, whatever, I don't care. I guess we could send somebody over there if we really wanted to anyway. Not that it matters over much. Fëanor spent basically the entire campaign, or at least a good portion of it, running around, or flying around would be more appropriate, as a one-woman doomstack and obliterating anything she came across. Though I fear that there won't be anything else for her to fight in this campaign. So I'm thinking we end Imrik's campaign at Fyrus, and then... next turn, we end the campaign with the final battle of Erethond versus Be'lakor. It's truly the Eagle campaign as much as it is the Dragon campaign, so it should be fun. I'm hoping he doesn't run and will stay here, because the garrison at Conquata is hyper-elite, maxed out, and that plus Be'lakor's army and a little bit of extra units, including the Blue Scribes and Aecold Hillbrass himself, should be pretty darn fun. But for now, let's start with Imrik's final fight, as I assume we won't find another. They have no chance.
For the dragons!
Alright, here we go. Rejoice, for you bear witness to a battle by the Dragon Prince of Caledor. Imrik himself will obliterate these Tomb Kings, and I'd wager that they will be able to do very little about any of this. Anyway, we've separated our army into three distinct sort of blobs. Our noble, one noble will lead the Ithilmar chariots through some of the units of skeleton spears, like so, and we're going to blob them up so that we can get the the Shield of Thorns on all of them. Imrik will touch down and oh my god. He will touch down and he will either 1 or 2 hit the poor enemy Tomb King, and he could just ignore it. Imrik hits so dang hard. He has 220 charge bonus, and yeah, there's really nothing here that's going to be able to stand against him. We can also see what the Dragon Princes are doing, since they're not going to obliterate everybody in 2 hits at least. And they will be facing off against piles of skeletons as well as those crypt horrors. And ooh, triple dragon breath comes down from our legendary dragons, but mostly they've just been hovering up above and menacing, looking menacing at the enemy. Imrik will now destroy the enemy Tomb Prince in the same way that he killed off his king, as well as anything that's around there, though Imrik has gone into rampage due to the Curse of Joff. That really doesn't help you very much. If anything, causing Imrik to go on a rampage is probably more dangerous for you. But anyway, the chariots continue sort of staying in a little blob, which we don't usually do, but with the Shield of Thorns protecting them, they're dealing plenty of damage between that and the bleed that... Oh wait, these guys aren't Warline chariots, so it's just the Shield of Thorns. But anyway, we can get them out of there as needed. In the meantime, our 3 dragons will move in to help. Imrik has killed off the enemy lord. The left enemy flank is on the verge of collapse as well, as the dragon princes don't even really need to charge through the enemy ranks and can just fight on par with the enemy instead. Although we could do a little bit of cycle charging if we felt like it, there doesn't appear to be too much need here. See those crypt horrors brought down by the lances of the dragon princes, and though the enemy has yet another activation of its realm of souls, it's just not out healing the sheer amount of damage they're dealing. Alright, and this is why I couldn't really take pretty much any army that Imrik faced off against too seriously. Oh, look at that. We've taken a little bit of damage on one of the Athilmar chariots. They haven't lost any of their units, and a little bit of regrowth will probably recover that just fine. And dragons have, since the dragons have joined the piles of chariots here, they have wiped out most of the enemies that were there, including the Crypt Horrors and the Ushapti that were spawned via the Realm of Souls to help the enemy out. Nice tail smack bringing down that Ushapti. That was beautiful. I love seeing the legendary dragons at work as well. Even though I'd wager just one might have been sufficient. Imrik is... what has he been fighting here? Oh, a unit of Crypt Horrors as well. Fair enough. He's up to 74 kills and 37,000 damage just by fighting. We haven't used his Chain Lightning, and we haven't used his piercing bolts of burning, or any other kind of damaging thing. Just good old-fashioned killing things. All right, ooh, love that glow on Shakalot there, or the eye glow. Alright, impressively, still a few of the enemy skeleton warriors and horses are still holding. The Ushapti appear to be dropping, however, and it seems like most of the enemies are disintegrating. The enemy lord, probably rightly, rides right past Imrik, ignoring him, or at least or possibly running away from him, and tries to go for our mage, but Imrik will touch down anyway, and there's really no escape from him anyway. Alright, a nice hit to the enemy Tomb King, who, hey, loses only about a third of his HP to that one, and then, oh, wow. Good lord, Imrik. Seems to have been like a double hit or something. First a third of his HP, and then the second blow took all of the rest of the HP, so too bad, so sad for him. Enemy Lord number 2 and destroyed. And it looks like the enemy reinforcements are rather limited, as the garrison as well as the garrisoning stack fought together, so there is little enough left. Do one last charge from our dragon princes. Oh, look at this guy take the lead, trying to take all the glory. Charge right through those poor crypt ghouls, which will be sent flying. I'm certainly not one to underestimate crypt ghouls, but they are a fragile unit, and the dragon princes very much are not. And I love those burning lances. The undead probably not super happy about that either. Surrender? Yeah, I don't think the ghouls are going to surrender. They might scamper, scurry away, but that's about it. Anyway, Athilmar here, it's going to get one last charge in. Imrik's going to head towards the enemy Tomb King as well. Touchdown, hit him, and take about 90% of his HP in one hit, and the rest in the other. It's obnoxious. It is so obnoxious. Imrik is too strong. I mean, he used to be, what, like the, I don't know, second or third best duelist in the game? When on Menaeth Near, anyway. I mean, granted, Menather does get a lot of the credit, but yeah, anyway. Mostly after Kugath, and I guess now after Tamarkan as well, simply because Tamarkan and Kugath can just heal themselves a lot. Though I do wonder if they'd be able to out-heal Imrik's damage. Anyway, one last little show-off type of thing, a little bit of fireworks as all 3 legendary dragons will get their breaths down on one unit just because they can, and this poor unit, it gets completely obliterated by it. Imrik was gonna pop off his piercing bolts of burning, but there's only 12 units left, and it looks like they just won't hit him. And there we go. With that, the last of the enemy skeleton warriors melts away, and this one last little fight is ours. Just to once again show Imrik's domination and superiority over everyone in the world. And he'll keep telling us all about it, rest assured. Alrighty, there we go. I readily admit that we were just toying with the enemy there, but I mean, Imrik's army is basically toying with any army that they come across. Imrik himself is just so ridiculous, two-shotting basically every lord or hero that he comes in contact with is insane in and of itself. Of course, he has his 3 legendary dragons with him. We were going to get it down to 1 if we were to swap them out, but there isn't really any need. And then of course his dragon princes have been insane throughout the campaign. The Scales of War, the Fireborn, and then one I left unnamed for some reason. I don't remember why. I think it was to say for a specific name, but I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. Decent bit of damage on the 3 Thilmar chariots. Were in here to be eventually transferred to a chariot-heavy army, but once again, there's no one really to fight with the chariots, so we'll have to do chariot armies in another Elven campaign. It's not like this is going to be the last one on the channel. We will, I guess occupy the place. It doesn't really matter either. Forest Cloak, and with that, the followers of Nagash have been destroyed, and the last threat here, that isn't our friend or ally, has been wiped out. And there's no real reason to spend like 30 turns traveling anywhere else just to meet some weak armies. Yeah, we got Luther Harkin and Rakarth running around, but frankly their armies are quite weak and actually surrounded by our allied armies, all of which are moving towards them. Shiotla has left the southern Chaos Waste, etc, etc, etc. So I think one more time skip and into the final battle against Be'lakor. Oh, Be'lakor, you silly, silly fool. If ever there was someone who knew how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, rather than waiting for us to attack Kinkwata, he instead has decided to attack Arathon directly. Credit where it's due for being brave enough to do so. Perhaps he thinks that having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lords and heroes counting himself is sufficient, but I think it's more of a function of the fact that the game has a tendency to underestimate Arathon's eagles and other such units. We've seen it time and time again throughout the campaign because they're extremely cheap and they're tier 2 units. 140. Man, eagles are so cheap for how good they are. But anyway, looks like the final battle commences now without the garrison of Kinkwata. Alas for Be'lakor, but we will bring him down and all the same. Go.
Asurian wills it. My men here will call my spirit home.
Alrighty, here we go. One last fight for Arathon and one last fight for the campaign in general. Now, since Be'lakor only attacked us with his 1 army and the little mini stack that he has with him, with Eocold and with the blue scribes, we are honor bound to give him a sporting chance. And so we will not do this in the way that we normally do this with Arathon's army. wherein we send the Eagle Blob out by themselves and obliterate half the enemy army while the other enemies are divided and also get obliterated by our artillery pieces. No, we'll keep our artillery pieces to single shot so that they cannot obliterate, well, pretty much all the enemy infantry, though they will be targeting the enemy single entities a little bit, and rather than splitting the Eagles off, we'll keep them with our main line. What this will do is it will allow the enemy to actually move towards us and hit our Silverin Guard and allow them to actually play rather than have the Eagles take most of the glory. Besides, I think this entire army is named, so everybody deserves a chance to play Talon Princes, Silver Guard, the Gleaming Watch, the Last Defense, the Eagle Guard, the Silverin Guard. Oh, actually, these two are unnamed. Go figure. Talon's Shadow, Raptor's Screech, Silverin Salvo, the Reapers, and the Eagle Claw Bolters. And then lastly, Talon Force 1, Eagles, and Quadbeak Crew, Thorondor's Flock, Gwahir's Beaks, and lastly, Screech, which I'm sure is happy eagle noises. Anyway, Blue Scribes attempted to move towards us, but, well, if nothing else, we're not letting them drop any cataclysmic spells on top of our Silverin Guard. I'd rather watch the Silverin Guard actually fight, so let the Blue Scribes head back through their portal. Gonna get a few shots into Bellicor, but it will do barely any damage, and besides, we're mostly gonna save him for Arathon to have a nice duel with. A few Eagles are a little bit in the way, but they're not going after Bellicor. Instead, they're going to surround and hopefully kill off this Chaos Feral Manticore here, who is going to be in pretty bad shape rather quickly. Let's see. It's got that Scarecrow banner on it, and frankly, it's a lot of Eagles. But in the meantime, this is why we didn't obliterate the army from a distance. We allowed them to close. So Chaos Spawn working together with Doggos and one more Chaos Spawn. I see some Forsaken and, ooh, Aspiring Champions have charged in as well. That's going to be very ugly for the Silverin Guard. As an Aspiring Champion unit, I guess probably no matter how much you buff up the Silverin Guard is not something that they're going to be able to hold off. Bellicor is still fighting, the Manticore has fallen, and it looks like we're just going to surround and kill Bellicor off a little bit faster, as we gotta get all of our heroes, including Arathon, into the actual fight. Down goes Bellicor one last time and disappears and melts into shadow from whence he came. The enemy has charged forth with another Lord and 2 Exalted Heroes plus a Cold Hellbrass, and we gotta get all of our units separated so that they can actually attack them. Cold will be the target of Arathon, as well as whatever Chaos Knights we can find. I'm gonna get a blob of Eagles attacking the enemy Chaos Giant as well, together with the Silverin Guard. But I'm sure we'll get plenty of damage from that giant as well. And there we go. Keeping this fight reasonably interesting. And ooh, look at that. The Last Defense aptly named, trying to hold back those Aspiring Champions and taking heavy damage while doing so. But living up to their name, as they're still not letting them through and holding them back long enough for Arathon to join and start ripping through those Aspiring Champions. Alright, and 1 eagle per Aspiring Champion, or at least 1 eagle per Aspiring Champion that remains, is probably not going to go well for the Aspiring Champions either, strong as they are. With that, the main enemy line begins to break, a lot of their units back off, and I'm sure some of them will come back, but by the looks of it, their assault, or their attempt at an assault, has failed, though they have done damage. Talon Force 1 has lost 2 eagles and suffered about 60% of its HP and damage. The Last Defense, as we saw, were heavily damaged by the Aspiring Champions. An enemy Chaos Sorcerer Lord has found our mage here, but fortunately the mage has simply summoned a unit of summoned eagles who will go after that lord shortly. Other eagles, together with Silverin Guard, are mobbing the enemy giant, who is still very much in the fight and who we would normally have killed off either with our noble or with Arathon, but in this particular case we really needed them to go after the enemy lord and hero instead. Our noble now facing off against Cold, and Arathon will go after the Chaos Lord as the two fight together. And it looks like with that, I hear the horns of retreat and Bellicor's army gives up, having fought on long after the defeat of Bellicor himself, but I suppose with Echoed there to lead them, they were still willing to fight. And there we are, a very, very nice fight, and considering we were able to give the enemy a chance, they certainly actually gave us a decent one. Lovely.
Bless my blade!
Alrighty, there we go. I obviously would have preferred to fight Bellicor together with the garrison of his settlement, but it's all good. His, fighting it this way still allowed us to fight a pretty fun battle by virtue of the fact that we fought it differently than Arathon's army would normally have fought. Normally we would divide and conquer, obliterating pieces of the enemy army with the eagle blob, whereas here we stayed back. We didn't use our multi-shot on our eagle claw bolt thrower, so we didn't force the enemy army to separate all its units from each other and thus attack us together. And at the same time, we kept our eagles with our army rather than dividing and conquering the enemy at a distance, which is our tried and true strategy, which made this a little bit more of a close victory than would otherwise be. So, still a fun time. Still not good enough, Bellicor, not good enough by any means. We will heal up, not that that matters, as that was indeed the last battle of this campaign, and I'm going to call it here. Once again, there's really nothing left to do, no real threats, etc., etc. It was a really fun one, and I hope these extra few battles, a little bit late mind you, will serve as a nice sort of stepping off point for those looking for an episode sort of labeled as the final episode, as the finale of the campaign. Let's just take a quick look at the records here. Yeah. All hours, we gave the entirety of the Mountains of Morn to the Ogres. For some reason, they apparently lost the settlement there, but I think it was a rebellion. Whatever. We revived and gave all of these settlements to Miragliano here. Or Magritte, whatever. To Estalia. Yeah. Yeah, and was going to give them more, so could have potentially given them this entire coastline. Frankly, we didn't bother with the Pirates of Sartosa, but we could have destroyed them at any time, and they've got nothing. Frankly, a lot of our allies probably don't even know what exactly to do anymore. We could see all of the armies of Katep sort of just hanging around, the Sisters of Twilight hanging around as the Northern Chaos Wastes territories remaining are too far away. Wolfric, of course, and Norska is still around. There's really no reason to go to the one place where we haven't bothered to go, especially as they're all too weak to bother with. Anyway, as I was saying, all of our territory, all of our allies, mostly our territory, all of our territory up here, and we managed to complete the plan of getting this sort of edge of allies here as these territories were transferred to Katep, so we wouldn't have gone any further here anyway. But I don't really see any need to play another like 50 turns of just auto-resolving 99% of the battles. The campaign was won long ago when we were in the screw-around stage, though that is admittedly a fun stage. Anyway, thanks for sticking with it, folks. I think there were a lot of memorable moments in this one, a lot of legendary actions by the legends of Arathon, Phaedon, and Michaela in particular, and of course they're all sticking around in the community canon forever. Plus, we've had some great ideas in terms of what their lore is and will continue to grow to be. More Total Warhammer to come on this channel as always, so stay tuned. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.